So this is chapter 5, shifting the stress cascade. Now we've seen that layers of perception, neural and endocrine responses through the autonomic nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system, the stress response, body sensation, emotion, thought, secondary feelings, secondary thought, physiological responses to all of these, a kind of vortex of thinking and feeling and feeling and thinking, and physiology, all constitute the stress response. It's a whole body sport. We've seen the role of awareness and the body as awareness, as well as emotional literacy and getting really familiar and comfortable with what goes on inside our own heads and inside our own hearts, all our emotions, all our thoughts. We've looked at the nature of mind and its component elements, from the sense fields and all the different aspects of our intelligence and how we make sense out of those. Resilience is simply learning to see these patterns. Number 1, see these patterns. Number 2, know the patterns, get really familiar. And number 3, catch the triggers. Number 4, know the triggers. Get familiar with your triggers. And number 5, interrupt them. Number 6, change them. Number 7, resolve them forever. Now, pattern interruption is a crucial aspect of practice. To begin with, it doesn't matter when you interrupt the pattern, even if it's afterwards. You can stop for a moment and go, reflect, stay in the learning frame. Stay in the learning frame and consider how it would be to catch it earlier. Imagine it happening. Imagination is powerful. And then next time you'll catch it a little bit earlier. You see, eventually you interrupt the pattern of the stress cascade and behaviors halfway through. And you choose something. You go, I'm doing it again. You choose something else. Literally, you're telling your brain, I'm not doing that anymore. I am now choosing this. The power of attention, the power of awareness, the power of focus, the power of choice. You have to repeat this as it is. It's repetition that embeds new learning. But the thing is, you see, eventually you interrupt the pattern, the stress cascade, and the behaviors it manifests as it is happening and choose something else. Literally. You're telling your brain, as it arises, I'm not doing this anymore. I am now choosing this. Again, you have to repeat it as it is. It's repetition that embeds new learning. Eventually, you interrupt the pattern of stress cascade and the behaviors at the point of perception. And you choose to see what's happening differently. You choose to see things differently. Literally, you're telling your brain, I am not seeing like that anymore. I'm now choosing to see things like this. This way of seeing, this kind of situation serves me better. Again, you have to repeat it as often as necessary. It's repetition that embeds new learning. All right? Eventually, you don't need to interrupt the pattern of stress cascade or the behaviors. You just choose to see things differently. And that particular stress cascade and its triggers are dissolved. Literally, you have told your brain, I'm not going to see like that anymore. I'm now choosing this way of seeing this kind of situation. And your brain has learned. It has changed. Your self-applied neuroplasticity has been embedded. Now, let's have a look at pattern interrupts. What's a good pattern interrupts? And one of the best ones that I know of is the stop, the S-T-O-P, which means stop. You stop. You'll catch yourself in a pattern. You stop it and physically and mentally pause. You take a few slow conscious breaths. That's the T. Take some slow conscious breaths between 4 and 9. The O is observe. Scan your body. Feel your feet, your heartbeat, your breath, anything. Notice where you are. Notice what's around you. What is real now? Observe everything. And then proceed, P. Make a conscious choice of what you want to do now. What do you choose? But the thing is, in that process, STOP, you've successfully interrupted the pattern. Now repeat as often as necessary. And over time, you have successfully rewired your brain. You have applied self-applied neuroplasticity. Remember, neuroplasticity is all about what fires together, wires together. What fires apart, wires apart. You're taking that trigger and that stimulus and you're unwiring it from your stress response by interrupting the pattern. You're preventing the old links firing and gradually rewiring what have been persistent old grooves of neurology and creating new behaviors. Another pattern introduction is STORP, S-T-O-R-P. And this one only really works if you have enough of a reference experience of your deepest, most authentic self as non-conceptual awareness, inconceivable bliss. If you have that, though, it becomes powerful. Because again, what you do is stop. S, catch the pattern. Physically and mentally pause. T, take a few slow, conscious breaths. Between 4 and 9 will do the job. O, observe. Scan your body. Feel your feet. Feel your heartbeat. Feel the breath. Notice where you are. Notice what's around you. Get contextual. What is real? And then R is the new one. Remember who you are as non-conceptual awareness and inconceivable bliss. Remember that deepest truth of your authentic self. Remember it. And now P, proceed. Make a conscious choice of what to do now. What would love do? What would love do? What would wisdom do? What would compassion do? When you combine practices like this with body-based awareness practice, such as the nagas, such as a sitting and observing practice where you're observing the emotions, observing thought, observing the breath, and a conscious breath practice, then you have a recipe, a profound recipe for change. It puts you in authentic authorship of your life. Now, we've already looked at emotional intelligence a bit and emotional freedom. We've already looked at the kind of mental activity you might have and find that it comes up as one of these 8 kinds of activity. Mental activity occurs in one of these ways. It's stories. Our brain conjures up stories about what has happened, what is happening, or what might happen. And if we look at our stories, the star at the middle of all the stories that we tell ourselves is the I, me, mine creation of thought and feeling that our brain conjures up as the continuity of what we are. The I, me, mine. Stories are how we bipedal mammals without big teeth and claws communicate. Stories are how we communicate. Here I am making a film about stress into resilience. How did I get here? Well, I got here because I was, as a young man, extremely stressed out. I went through very difficult childhood, adverse childhood experiences, and I was blessed enough to find certain practices, or certain practices found me, such as meditation and yoga, that took me on a different trajectory. But that is part of the story, and how we communicate with each other is story. It's not about getting rid of the stories, it's about choosing the stories that we communicate, the stories that resonate with meaning, the stories that enable us to be free, not the stories that bind us into complexity, into difficulty, into pain, into suffering, into warfare. What stories do we choose? The second thing that the brain does is meaning making. Our brain is constantly seeking to make sense and meaning out of the disparate, connected experiences, all the data we get from all the fields, sense fields, from inside of us. Now, the complex equivalents we come up with, which is this means this, are sometimes supported by evidence and sometimes supported by superstition our brains conjures up. You know, it's not always real. Knowing the difference between superstition and evidence-based meaning is useful. Our brain is constantly creating meaning out of all of this information. It's part of what it is to be human. You know, we communicate our meanings to each other. You know, at the grandest sense, they're wonderful philosophies about the nature of the world and about what the nature of what it is to be human. It's beautiful. In its most complicated sense, it's meanings that take us into a downward spiral, where we either minimize or aggrandize ourselves in relationship to other people and create complex differences based on the meanings we've made that create more pain and suffering and stress in our lives. So meaning making is a crucial and important part of what our brain does. So far that's storytelling. Let's be careful with the stories we tell ourselves and other people. There's meaning making. Let's be wise with the meanings we make. Let's not choose to make meanings that are difficult and complicated. Let's choose a better way of doing meanings. The third element of the busyness of our brain is metaphors. The kind of metaphors we live by. What do I mean by metaphors we live by? I mean the baseline stories that we may well have inherited or learned from our family. They're quick and easy boxes of meaning. Phrases such as, well, life is hard. Money's hard to come by. Money doesn't grow on trees. No one loves a loser. Any kind of story that guides our thoughts and our behaviours into particular channels of suffering, despair, complexity or stress are the negative metaphors. We can deconstruct those and no longer live by them. Once we see them, once they're in our awareness field, we no longer choose them. First is awareness. Second is interrupt them. Third, choose something else. Now, what else would serve you? What else would serve you? What kind of metaphor would work well? Another thing our brain does is dialogue rehearsals. The inner rehearsals of a meeting with somebody that might be difficult. The various scenarios that our brain can conjure up that we go round and round in our heads. This is normal. People do it all the time. And really none of it is to be believed. It can be useful to do rehearsals for a short period of time. And we can, from the observing self, the part of ourselves of awareness, say, thank you, brain, for all those rehearsals. That's 25 times I've gone through that particular potential meeting. Stop now. If it continues, interrupt it and say stop to this part of your brain. Train your brain. I don't allow my brain to do more than 9 rehearsals of any anticipated event. I just tell it to stop. I just tell it to stop. Because when our brain goes round and round and round in rehearsals like that, one, it's using up an awful lot of cellular ATP, an awful lot of glucose that have come from plants. It's energy expensive. And it is stressful. It creates so much adrenaline and cortisol running through the body with all the potentialities of the meeting. And when we can relax that part of our brain, tell it to stop, and go into a meeting without all of that apprehension, without all that fear, without all that concern, we've done something impressive. The fifth kind of activity our brain gets up with is anticipation and apprehension of what the future holds. Whether it's daydreams of fantastical outcomes, just wonderful outcomes, or whether it's depressing futures of destruction and despair, we don't know what the future's going to hold. So whether we do awfulizing, catastrophizing, or fantasizing, we can catch those patterns in our brain and choose to stop them. We can understand brains do this, that the future will not look like this, and eventually we have the capacity and the power through mind training to understand that it's a waste of energy and a misuse of imagination. Let's use our imagination better. Let's choose something different. The sixth thing our brains do is memories. Memories are wonderful. There's nothing wrong with memories. We need them. They are also only what our brains paid attention to in the context. The rest was forgotten. They're only what was emotionally poignant and what can be recalled. So when we recall memories, we change them. We only remember what we paid attention to, what was emotionally poignant, and then we change them. We add bits, we polish them, we add a bit of drama to them. We change them radically. So memories are powerful and beautiful, but they're also not actually what happened. And if you get one person, their memory of an event is different to somebody else's memory of an event. So we can be really wise with our memories and understand that they are not fact. They're stories that we have created as part of the continuity of the I, me, mine selfing experience to help us to manage the world well. The seventh thing our brain does is selfing. And we've talked about this a little bit already. It's the I, me, mine. It's the creation of the I, me, mine, the I feeling, the me story, and the territory of mine. Our brain's busy doing that all the time. And of course, another thing that we do when we do that is then we create othering. Other people. Who are they? What's their story? What's their domain? What's their territory? So we're constantly engaging in selfing and othering. And that can be incredibly toxic. We can do toxic selfing, which diminishes or demeans ourself. Often from childhood trauma, we might feel we're unlovable or unworthy. Right? We can make other people feel less than and more than. We can do superiority, supremacy, inferiority. All these are stories we're creating in our brains. They're not to do with people. They're not to do with reality. They're things our brain makes up based on the conditioning and the culture that we've come from and all the stories that is rippling with. We can choose to do things differently. And to do that, we have to be able to have them in awareness first and interrupt them. Awareness, interrupt, choose differently, resolve. Another good strategy with all these different brain functions is to have growth buddies. People who are on track doing the same kind of thing of you, and they will help keep you on track, and you can help too. One of the things we do on our courses is we get people to do this kind of thing. That's a lot of activities the brain does. Okay, storying, meaning making, internal dialogue, apprehension, catastrophizing, fantasizing, right, selfing, othering, all centered around the I, me, mine, the continuity of our experience. And we can change all of that. None of that is the truth. None of that is real. And we have the capacity with self-applied neuroplasticity to alter all of that, and therefore to alter the whole experience of how we engage with our world and how we create our world. That's powerful.